All right, so we are getting spicy tonight. We are talking about how overvalued are homes here in California. Just how overvalued are they? And because I know that you don't want to just hear that from me, you want to hear it from someone who analyzes the market all the time. So in order to do so, I brought on my good friend Jeb Smith. Jeb, I'm going to pull you in here. If you do not follow Jeb, he has a YouTube channel that about 50,000-60,000 people have raised their hand and said, Jeb, I subscribe to your channel. You throw out content 3 times a week talking about the housing market and analyzing the housing market. And just appreciate you being on, man.
No, I appreciate you having me, man. If these people knew what it took to get on here, they would all stay for the entire show. So we're running about 15 minutes late because of me. So I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate anybody watching.
Well, we got you at home. We might have some kids running around the background, but that's what we have to do because you're a busy man. So we just appreciate you being on. So as we always start here, let us know where you are watching from. We always like to know where people are tuning in from because we're usually talking about San Diego. Today, we're talking about more Southern California. And we're really going to dive deep into, if homes are overvalued and what exactly that means. Speaking of which, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Jeb.
Yep.
What would you say if someone, we hear people all the time say, oh, homes are overvalued. What does that mean to you?
That's a tough question. I mean, are homes overvalued? Prices are high. Affordability is tough. But as long as people are continuing to buy properties, then I don't think the market is overvalued, right? If there's a buyer for a property, then clearly, the market says otherwise. Now, if a property sits on the market and isn't moving for one particular reason or another, then maybe that home is listed too high, or the valuation from that seller is too high of what they think that home is worth. But at the moment, the market is still pretty strong here in California. I mean, I think we're going to probably talk about that in detail. I mean, there's a lot of I think conflicting headlines and YouTubers talking about, declines and crashes and inventory rising and so on and so forth. But I can tell you, boots on the ground, the market is saying otherwise. Demand has actually come back in the last couple of weeks. It's kind of an interesting thing that we can talk about in a little bit more detail here. I mean, I've lost out on the last couple of offers that I've submitted for clients in multiple offer situations where homes have sold over the asking price. So asking if the market's overvalued, I say no at this time. But I mean, obviously people out there are going to say, Jeb, you're a real estate agent. You're just here to sell homes. And the reality is that's not the case at all. It's not, I've been saying this a lot, Dan, and it's not always a great time to be a buyer, right?
Yeah.
And now is one of those times. I don't think it's a great time to be a buyer if you're looking at the short-term horizon. And I don't think a crash is coming, but I do think there's an opportunity for the market to move sideways for an extended period of time, a couple of years. CoreLogic and some of these big, companies that do, home price forecasts and whatever are still expecting 3 to 5% appreciation over the next, 12, 24 months or so. I think you could see that, or maybe even a little bit less of just sideways growth, sideways movement in the market where things aren't appreciating quite as much, a deceleration, if you will, which means if you're buying the property and you have that short-term time horizon, I don't know that it's the best time to buy because there is that opportunity for things to not appreciate like they have over the last, 50 to 60 years. The annual price growth is 4.6%, I think, over like a 60-year period. But that doesn't mean every year it went up. Some years it went down. So to get back around to your question, I think each property is a little bit different. Each market's a little bit different, right? Real estate's local. If you ask me what's happening here in Huntington Beach, I can tell you exactly. If you ask me what's happening in San Diego, I'm going to say, Dan, what do you think about overvaluation on properties?
In fact, we talk about that from time to time. We'll eat each other up because we're so close, but yet the markets can be so different. But I set you up on that one because what does overvalue mean? The value of a home is what a buyer is willing to pay for the home.
All day.
So that's the value of the home. Now, I think when people are saying overvalued and when you're seeing these headlines about properties being overvalued, they're really talking about what is on the horizon. Are these prices going to stay where they're at? Or are they going to start to come down? And I think that's really what we're going to dive into today. Growing Up Gaming is tuning in. What is going on, my man? Always nice to see you in here. Ash K is watching from San Diego, and we have our good friend Bern McGovern is also tuning in. Nice
What's
to see
happening there? Absolutely.
All right. So as always, we're going to pull up some articles here, and we're going to start discussing them. So if I can figure this out, it's like every time, it's like it's my first time.
You and I both. You and I both.
All right, so here's the first article. Bubble Watch, California homes could be 9% overvalued.
Oh, shocking. Now, let's look at that. Like, honestly, like not to put you, look at the date on that article.
Yeah. February
5th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for another 60 days after that, the market continued to go up. So, I mean, that's the problem with headlines, right? Unless you dive deep into what's actually going on, you don't get the context of it. I mean, I did a video today that's going to be published next week talking about California specifically in real estate. And one of the headlines, again, from the Register was that, home sales plummet 37% in $45 million zip codes. Wow. You think you read that, you're like, wow, the market's falling apart. Well, there's just less sales happening. Why?
Yeah.
Affordability, because of interest rates, because, there's just, it's that time of year, the seasonality in the market. There's all of these things playing into it. And it's really easy to make fearful headlines when, the doom and gloom allows you to do it. Fear sells. And I think we see a lot of it out there. And, again, I think the goal for me is just I'm not trying to get anybody to buy a home. It's more of just providing you with the information so you can make informed decisions, right? And buying a home is a personal thing. Like, personally, my wife and I are looking for a property, right? I just filmed a video about this last week. Why am I looking for a property as a real estate agent that understands market fundamentals, understands how markets react, understands that homes have appreciated 40% or so in my market in 2 years? Why? Because it's the right time in my life to buy another house, right? I've got 3 kids here. 10, 8, and 4 years old. I'm in 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms. I need more space.
Yeah.
It's the right time. Am I overpaying? To me, no, because if I can afford the payment, if I can look out, and see myself here 10, 15 years from now, which is ultimately, I think, the goal, and I'm not stretching myself, then why do I care what the value of the property is tomorrow? And I think that's the mindset difference in somebody that understands the benefits of real estate and long-term, generational wealth and holding property versus the guy that's just in it for the quick buck or, thinks that real estate is only an investment.
Yeah. And our good friend of the show, Derek Evans, always talks about how the headlines are never even written by the same people that write the article. So their entire job is to get you to click that button. And
Absolutely.
I'm guilty. We're that's exactly what I was gonna say. Look at the headline of this video right now. How overvalued are homes in California? Look, I'm gonna, spoiler alert, I'm not gonna give you an actual specific number, but we're gonna talk about this whole topic. But I completely agree with you. I think, for good reason, real estate agents get a bad rap about giving advice for buying and selling homes, right? Because all you hear all day long, if you followed 100 real estate agents, is today is a perfect day to buy a house.
Yep.
Today's a perfect day to sell a house. But the reality is, we are the ones with boots on the ground. We see all of the information coming in. We're constantly analyzing the data, and then we're seeing from a micro level what's happening. And we talk over and over and over again on the show about how the data is always delayed. And the things that we're talking about today are going to show up on these, the core logic data points in 2, 3, 4 weeks from now.
Yep. Absolutely.
So we are the people that should be talking about this. And, luckily we're both in a situation where we just put out valuable information. We give our completely honest truth. And we do enough business to where we don't have to try and get every single person on here to buy a home with us.
And that's, people think that I live on YouTube, what YouTube does. If that were the case, I wouldn't be able to survive, right? My business is relational. A very small percentage of my business comes from YouTube. I'm not here to convince anybody to buy a home. I'm trying to, create relationships, and I don't do that by telling people bad information, right?
Yes.
And you said something a minute ago that I think is super valuable: boots on the ground, right? So there's a lot of people out there and we could even use like major companies like CNBC and Diana Olick, and I don't know if you ever saw the clip that Barry Habib did, where since 2000, I think 14 or 15, she's been calling a crash every year since 2014 or 15, and,
One year
and it's
she's going to be
hilarious
right.
because it shows her, and it shows the year, and it shows the clip. So for 7 years she's been calling for a crash, or 8 years, or whatever the number is, as are a lot of people online. And I think the important piece is boots on the ground. What do you get from boots on the ground? I can tell you what I'm seeing in offers, how many offers I'm getting, are they selling above the asking price, why are properties sitting on the market a little bit longer, how are buyers navigating it, are sellers able to negotiate, all of these things. In fact, 2 weeks ago on a live stream, I mentioned in the live stream, hey, I'm getting a bit of a feeling that demand is picking up a little bit. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I'm starting getting calls on listings, multiple offers on properties that were sitting. And guess what? Shortly after, rates drop a little bit and the demand picks up. And now the headline this week is that demand has picked up, over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, I saw that coming,
Yeah.
being out there in the field. So I think that's important. Is not only watch this stuff. I mean, you can watch both sides, get a feel for who, what you're looking for, but don't just take one person's, gospel, if you will, and use that to make a decision whether or not you're going to buy a house. I mean, it's crazy. It's not about that at all. It's about, again, being at the right time in your life.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's
Yeah.
different for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So,
all right, so California homes could be 9% overvalued. Headline of the day, again, as you had mentioned, rightfully so. This is from February 5th, and
right.
we have some other articles coming up that are that will even make you laugh a little bit more than that. Here's another article that came out that, when I was asking you in the very beginning, what's the definition of an overvalued home? Like, what does that mean when we're saying overvalued home? I think people are conflating that with homes being affordable. Just because homes aren't affordable, it doesn't mean they're overvalued. And of course, we have an affordability crisis. We have an affordability issue when it comes to homes, especially here in California. And San Diego specifically, this is something that came out again in February. But, San Diego passes San Francisco as nation's least affordable metro. And specifically what this is talking about is the cost of homes versus, the median salary in San Diego.
Yep.
So, yeah, is it the most affordable place? No, of course not. But supply and demand dictates what those prices should be. So that's kind of where we are, why we are where we are.
Yeah, and a really good example is like what happened over the pandemic, right? So over the pandemic, the Bay Area, right, is one of, has been an overvalued market for a long period of time, right? Because it hasn't been affordable, right? Even prior to the pandemic, it wasn't an affordable area by most people's standards because of, the tech money and the cost to live in the city and what have you. So what has happened over that period of time? People started moving to the outskirts of those areas, ultimately driving up the price of those homes. Now, people in those areas say, well, this is no longer affordable. These houses are overvalued. Well, somebody saw the value in those properties by moving to those areas for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And what's happened is, as those markets get more and more unaffordable, those people migrate to other areas. So now we've got a lot of people here in Orange County from the Bay Area. Prices here, I guess, are high, not affordable by many standards out there, however you want to look at it. But coming from the Bay Area, where these people are used to, 1.5, 1.6 on a comparable house that you can get here for 1.3, to
Yeah.
them, it's an affordable property. And then the people here say, well, this is no longer affordable. And they go, I'm moving to Arizona. Well, they can get a $600,000 house for what, is 1.2 here. And the people in Arizona go, this isn't affordable. People in California say, sure it is. I just bought it cash. And so it just continues to push down to these areas. And yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah.
The wealth, the divide, if you will, gets
Yes.
bigger. I don't know the solution to that. It's a problem, but that doesn't mean that homes have to crash just because that's the case, right? It can mean things move sideways for an extended period of time and allow wages to catch up. It can mean a number of things. It doesn't. The end goal doesn't always have to be, the world explodes, turmoil, everything's gonna crash. And I think it's a hopeful statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a couple more things I just want to pop up real quick.
Tomorrow it's going to crash. Tomorrow it's going to crash.
Okay, so we answered it. Now we can just
just move on.
We have a couple questions coming in. Keep those questions coming in. I just want to go over these next two items, and then we'll get to all of those questions. I just thought this was, this is what you see all the time. When will the housing market crash? Because this gets clicks. When you actually read through this article, it doesn't say at all when the housing market's going to crash. It actually says that the housing market is going pretty strong. So it's pretty interesting when you actually really, truly read through these things. This was a headline that popped up on my phone today, a breaking news, and it's not even talking about what the headline is. So
no, that's hilarious because, I have a Google phone, right? And so Google every day curates articles that I want to read. And because I read a lot on housing, I get every single housing article, like you probably do as well. And I always read these things, and I swear like 90% of them don't even address the topic whatsoever in the headline. So yeah, but too good.
For the 5 to 10% of people that actually read the articles and not just the headlines. Just remember, read the actual article, see what's going on there. And then I did want to pop up here. So if we're talking about overvalued, let's talk about just what's happened over the last 8 to 10 years as far as homes. I'm looking at homes in San Diego County here.
Yep.
Median price home in San Diego County. Now, obviously, we had a housing market crash, 2008, 2009. The market came down to, dropped to a very low level, and then it kind of started to normalize again in 2014. So I'm going to start with the prices. I'm going to go over the last 8 years. Go ahead.
Dan, I want you to do something for me, though. So go back and look at the price in 2008. What's the height?
497.
At what point did you make that back? Like, at what point were you back to the 497?
October of 2016.
So how long is that? 10 years? 8 years?
8 years.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that's important to note, right? The biggest crash in history, biggest economic disaster that most people have ever seen, and home prices make it back in 8 years.
It's not wild.
So, crazy, right? So, I mean, I would ask anybody that's considering that and thinking that they're going to get a steal, like, this is not then. And home prices made it back in 8 years. And just, I mean, I read an article yesterday or the day before, BlackRock just put together a $50 billion fund to buy property. If they pull back, I'm thinking, okay, you're going to compete against that. But anyway, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I think that is a very valid point. You keep talking so I can figure out my new technology here. The I don't remember what I was going to say. A very valid point.
No, but you were using the graph, and you were talking about prices, back in 2008, and then you were going to talk about prices, I think, since then. So let's.
Here we go. Here's my new whiteboard. How cool is this technology? Let's see if it actually works. So basically, what I was getting at is I wanted to look at what has happened over the last 8 years with housing prices, and how much of that was just inflation, and then how much of that was, whatever else is going on.
Yep.
So 2014, median home in San Diego County, $400,000.
Yep.
Today, 2022, we're up to 800,000. So we've doubled.
That's a steal.
That's a steal. It's a steal if you look at, we'll get into all the whys, the whats and whys. Inflation. So like cumulative inflation since 2014 was 25.2%, which if you are just looking at inflation would have brought the median home up to $500,000.
Yep.
So we're looking at a $300,000 difference. But that's just inflation. That's one factor that we can look at.
Yep. And then you factor in rates and other things and leverage with money. And I'm with you, buddy. I'll buy a house from you today.
All right. Well, let's talk about the other things that you have to consider when you're looking at this, because it can't just be inflation that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Here's a big one: rent increase.
Yep.
These cities had the biggest rent hikes in the U.S. The reality is, if you're not going to buy a house, you need to rent a house. And we're looking at, I actually should have paid more attention. I don't think Orange County's on here. Number 4 on the list, ladies and gentlemen, San Diego. 23%
23.
increase, single family home, or I'm sorry, 1-bedroom unit, San Diego to Carlsbad region of California rose 23% to $2,900.
When you hear that, does that surprise you? Like
No,
based on like clients? Yeah. I don't think that's crazy either. So, I mean, I do think it's crazy, but it's not surprising.
I actually think people are having a more difficult time finding rentals right now in a lot of cases than finding a home. And that's just going to keep getting harder.
Well, that's one thing that I've talked about before too, is like if you're planning on selling your house and getting out of the market for one reason or another, you're going to sell and rent, you're going to sell and wait on the sidelines and wait for housing to pull back, you're going to move to another area. Just make sure whatever you're looking for is there, right? I mean, I've seen several people sell property or go under contract and then they scramble and they're like, I can't find anything to rent that's comparable. And that's the thing. Like, I purchased my property in 2012, the property I live in now. And what I could rent it for today would be about $1,500 more than my mortgage payment that includes taxes and insurance on the mortgage.
Sure.
And so in order for me to find something comparable to this today, it would cost me about $5 grand, just over. And let me tell you, it's not out there. It's not. I mean, I look at rentals all the time, and that's the thing is, so to each his own, and how you want to approach it. But it's not always, the grass isn't always greener, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at the entire housing market, which includes rentals, and rentals are outpacing purchasing homes. When you're looking at how much it's appreciated, how much has gone up, at least here in San Diego. I'm not sure exactly how it is in Orange County. I promised we would answer some of these questions here. So Robert's asking, what do you think is going to happen after the first of the year in San Diego, when the short-term rental system kicks into full blast? So what Robert's talking about, and I'm not sure if you know about this, Jeb, but the city of San Diego has proposed and accepted some new rules and regulations on short-term rentals. Essentially, they're putting a cap in the city of San Diego of how many properties can be a short-term rental, and it's going to knock out about half of the short-term rentals if everything works out the way that's supposed to. So the first thing is, as far as my understanding, the first of the year is when they select. They're basically going to pull names out of a hat of who gets to keep that short-term rental status. I don't know when it actually goes into effect. It could be 1 year, it could be 5 years from now. So that is one aspect of it. The other aspect is just knowing how many people are actually going to want to sell their home if they don't get that, or rent out their home if they don't get that, or just decide to continue renting it short-term rental, knowing that there's very little, if not, no regulation and follow-up from the city about what properties are actually short-term rentals or not. So long-winded answer to say, it's really hard to say, but if there is any effect, it's probably not in the short term. It's not going to happen on January 1st of 2023. It's probably going to happen over a 1 to 2 year period after that.
No, I mean, that's something I've talked about, not in detail, because that's like wasn't aware of that. But I often have people talking about investment property. I said, look, when you buy an investment property, you have to look at it from either a cash flow standpoint or an appreciation standpoint. Rarely can you get both. Short-term rentals here in California allows you to get both in many cases because of that. But I've always said you've got to be careful, because if a city changes the guidelines or regulations, you could end up owning a property that doesn't make sense to own as a rental property for that very reason. So could it cause people to sell? Sure. But I think a lot of what you said there is probably more accurate and more likely the case, that where people just say, screw it, find me. And it is what it is, and I'll deal with it. I mean, it happened to a buddy of mine in Rancho Mirage. They just killed the short-term rental, so now I think it's 29 days or longer. So anything longer than 29 days is still allowed. And he just pulled his off and basically said, I mean, he's been able to do it long enough that he's made enough money that he doesn't really care what they do at this point. But for some, I think you could see some property from it, but I don't know that it's going to be a huge influx, because I think, the majority of people say, screw it.
Yeah. I think there's
come get me. Right. and honestly, like, there's a lot of money behind that too. And I'm not one to talk politics and all of that, but I would almost bet you that there be some pushback on this sort of thing, like big time, if it hasn't been already, just because, you know, there's some big money behind that stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think it's very plausible we could start to see some delays on those timelines and then see if they actually follow through with them. But I haven't heard any updates from it yet. So keep an eye on my channel. I definitely will update as soon as I find out more. The other thing I just wanted to mention, if you are looking for a short-term rental, I actually recommend that you find somewhere that has strict regulations that you can still squeeze in on, because once they have those in place, it's going to be a lot less likely that they're going to change them down the road.
Agreed. Yeah.
So the places that have like little to no regulations, they're great now, but as soon as they change things, like how is that going to affect everybody?
Agreed.
Ash K, so bought a single family home Scripps Ranch last week. Hopefully the prices won't drop in that area. Look, again, it's a long-term play. You're in a wonderful area. I think that anywhere in San Diego, out of all the places in San Diego, that's definitely near the top of the list of a great place to be in. But if you're looking to buy or sell it next year at a profit, who knows? I mean, it could go up, it could go down a little bit. Look at 8 years plus, and like Jeb says, no matter what, 8 years plus, you're going to be good to go.
Yeah, I mean, I tell everybody 10 years. I think, I mean, I've been in this house 10 years, which is way longer than I thought I would be. Just life goes by, man, and it's you know, it happens quickly. So just, you know, plan for the future. Don't buy for your needs today. Buy for your needs looking out a couple of years. I mean, if you're, you know, dating someone, you're thinking about getting married, you're not going to go into a 1-bedroom, right? You're probably going to start looking at 2, 3-bedroom properties, just because there's you know, a chance that, you know, kids and family and all of that stuff. It's, you know, you got to kind of look out in the future and plan for those years ahead.
Yeah, I had a good friend and client of mine that bought a 1-bedroom condo on the beach in PB, like literally on the boardwalk. And he was a bachelor. He was the happiest guy ever. He was just loving life. And I think like pretty much as we were closing on this property, he got into a serious relationship with someone with a small child. So the next year he ended up having to sell it, and you know, things happen.
Yeah, but you know, like PB, like again, he's in a good position, right? Because 1-bedrooms in PB on the beach are always going to do well, versus the 1-bedroom in, you know, El Cajon, you know, that, you know, people might not want to be in for whatever reason. So it's just, you got to know the area and know the potential long term.
Exactly. Grown Up Gaming, 2 of my faves. You guys are hitting all the points tonight. Thanks, Lyrical Maven. Appreciate that.
There you go. Nice.
Sarath says, I want to buy a new single-family home, but I'm worried about high property tax and Melrose I need to pay. So new single-family home. Yeah, Melrose. Look, there's upsides and downsides of Melrose. The upsides is it's going to be building up the local area that you're buying that home in. So hopefully the area is going to appreciate at a higher level because of that. You're also going to get more amenities. You're going to get better streets. You're going to get schools and police station, all that stuff will help build up the area. So yes, there's some negatives to it. There definitely are some areas that have higher Melrose than others, so that's, you can keep an eye on that, and also know that Melrose is not forever. So it's going to end at some point. What in your experience, Jeb? Somewhere around 25 years, I think it's.
Yeah, it depends on how long the bond is, but I think it's 25, 35, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on areas and all that good stuff.
And also consider property tax today feels high. When home values in 10 years, when home values are up, and you know, your property tax can only go up so much every single year because you're in California. That's one of the big benefits that we get. You're gonna be feeling pretty good.
Agreed.
Wife and I live up in the Bay Area, but we are from SoCal. We recently went on vacation to our hometown, San Diego. We are monitoring homes and jobs to head down south. Awesome. That's great, man.
Dan's your man.
Yeah, that's right. Or Orange County, Jeb's your man. All right, let's just hit up the rest of these articles here real quick. I thought this was interesting. County tax collector sends out 700 fewer defaulted property bills this year in San Diego. And I don't know the exact number, but it says the results of our effort underscored 99.1% collection rate this fiscal year. So look, if people couldn't afford their property tax and their mortgage every single month, this wouldn't be happening. So when we're looking at homes being potentially overvalued. Part of that has to go with the affordability, and if people can afford living in their homes, that's not going to go towards the homes or value. It's going to go probably the other direction. Oh, here you go, Jeb. This is my favorite. Southern California, an overvalued real estate market, question mark. You catch the date on this?
Ooh,
December
4th. Ooh.
So this is,
man.
I know I was cracking up a little bit inside when you had kind of brought this up about the earlier article. Again, this is a somewhat arbitrary thing to talk about. Our home's overvalued. This is going to be an opinion. They had the opinion in 2014. People are going to have the opinion every single year that homes are overvalued. But as we talked about earlier, home prices have actually doubled since 2014.
Not yet. You need to get
So
it
if you
first.
were to have purchased back then, you'd be sitting pretty right now.
Yeah. I mean, hell, if you just bought 2 years ago, you were sitting pretty. I mean, if you bought in January, you're sitting pretty. I mean, it's crazy. And that's the thing, is like, you just never know when this stuff's going to happen. I mean, and that's, tell people all the time, picking tops and picking bottoms in any market is near impossible, because you just don't know what's going to drive this stuff. I mean, I can tell you, I mean, I'm one that's been thinking the stock market, for example. I mean, I have money in equities and stocks and what have you, and I've been a player in that field for since I've made money. And I'll tell you, back in like 2017, I was like, market seems to be like a little frothy here. It's like a little overvalued.
Yeah.
Companies trading at 50 times their EBITDA and whatever. And here we are. I don't know where the market was in 2017, but I can tell you it's probably about 40% higher today than it was back then.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's tough. I mean, you got to buy for the right reasons. And the difference in the stock market and crypto and any of that other stuff, you don't need it, right? I mean, it's nice to have. It's nice to have stock, and over time, and the value of these companies are probably going to go up, and earnings are going to go up, and stock prices will eventually go up, and all that good stuff. Crypto, I have no idea what's going to happen there, but shelter you need. So you can choose to pay somebody else's mortgage, or you can choose to pay your own. And every month you make your own mortgage. You're paying down the principal, so you're putting money into a forced savings, if you will. You get tax benefits. I mean, there's benefits. I mean, that's why I think what saying is owners are 44 times. They have a 44 times greater net worth than those of renters because of real estate. So it's I'm a believer in it. I've seen a lot of people create a lot of wealth owning real estate, and that's what I'm trying to provide some education here.
So let me end with this question. I think this will be a good one, because this is what people think, and totally understandably, this is what they think. All right, Jeb, housing prices can't go up forever. So like, how much? They're already so expensive. They're already starting point $1 million single family home here in San Diego and Orange County. How high can they feasibly go?
I mean, when I hear that question, I like to tell the stories, if you will. And you can probably relate, but I can tell you here in Huntington Beach. So Huntington Beach was developed, if you will, in the 50s and 60s for the most part. It was an oil town. A lot of properties were built during that time. And at the time, properties were like $18,000, $19,000. And I've had the pleasure of meeting some people that owned property then and still own them today and what have you. And maybe they owned one and sold it and bought something else, whatever. And they've told me stories like, hey, listen, when I bought this house back in whatever, I thought prices could not go any higher. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea how I was going to afford to keep that house. And I thought I was getting in way above my head. And here I am today, and the thing's worth 1.5. Right.
Yeah.
I think we all go through that, and think that, hey, listen, they can't continue to go up. But what I can say is that, yeah, maybe that's true in some markets that have buildable land and, the middle of the country, if you will. But as you get closer to the coast, San Diego, Orange County, LA, the Bay Area, like just take the coast of California, if you will. There's no more buildable land in most of these markets. So if you want to be here, you got to pay the price. And over time, with inflation and population and just a lack of supply, the market is going to go up over time. Now, is your $1 million property going to be worth 10 million? Probably not. But is it, is that 4.6% appreciation that we've seen over the last 60, 65 years? Is that going to continue to be the case? I would bet so. Does that mean every year it's going to go up 4.6%? No. It means some years it's going to go up by 10, and some years it might go down by 3
Yep.
or 4, or maybe even some year it goes down by 10, and then moves sideways for some period of time. It's it doesn't, year over year doesn't mean that it goes up by that amount. It's a trend, right? And so the higher you get away from that trend line, if you will, which is what we've seen over the last couple of years, at some point you've got to pull back to that trend line to kind of get back in line with prices. And I think that's where we're at. I think we've seen a major move in appreciation. And so what we see now is more of a sideways move to get us back down in that trend. Does that mean we move sideways for 10 years? Maybe it does. I mean, I could see a market where we're sitting, at similar prices in 4 or 5 years from now.
Sure.
It's hard to say, right? You just don't know, what I mean, there's so many things out there that factor into this, and it's difficult to say. But I've been doing this almost 20 years, man, and it's like, I can tell you, when I bought my house in 2012, I wasn't worried about the price of the property. I was just worried about, could I afford it? Did it make sense? Was it the right time of my life? And it was. And fortunately, I got rewarded at the time because the market took off from there. I didn't plan that. It was just the right move in my life. And so, I think that's what you have to plan for.
I think that's a great way to kind of come to the end of this too, of the way to think about approaching buying a house. Look, no one can time the market. If anyone out there has a secrets timing the market, please let me know. Please let Jeb know. We'd love to know. We wouldn't have to make videos anymore. We just time the market. We know exactly what we're doing. But the most important thing, and we know this because of the clients that we work with, make sure that you can afford that monthly payment. And for me, I remember when we bought our first house, it felt like a little bit of a stretch at first. And so we had a roommate for the first 3 years. The nice thing was we didn't actually end up needing that money. We just reinvested it into the house and put some upgrades in. But I think sometimes it's okay to be in a situation to where it's tough, but you can make it work, and know that over time it's going to work out for you. Not 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years. I mean, it could work out for you great in that short time. But looking long term, that's the way they have to look at it.
Agreed. Again, if you're buying for the right reasons, you have less to worry about, I think, with regards to the price of the property. Yeah. So
Roth has a specific question. Jeb, would you recommend a 30-year loan or a 5/1, et cetera, at this point? Looking at something like that.
I don't think I would go with a 5 at this point. I'm a believer that interest rates are going to go down. I think there's an opportunity for rates to pull back. Now, does that mean they pull back to 3%? I don't think so. But I do think there's an opportunity within the next couple of years that rates do come down some. So I'm okay with an ARM, an adjustable rate, if you will. But I think I would probably try to shoot for like a 7 or 10 year. And many companies out there at the moment are priced. They have that 7. And many times the 7's priced as well as the 5. So I would probably lean towards something like that. And does an additional 2 years matter? Maybe not, but it just gives you a little bit more security. And I think a 10 years probably even, a little bit better security than that. I think within 10 years, you definitely see some pullback, and I think it could happen sooner. But I think if the savings is that big of a difference for you every month, versus the 30, I think it's something to consider.
Yeah. Again, look at your personal finances. Think of worst case scenario when it comes to these adjustable rate mortgages. Yeah. And from my experience, I'm curious if you notice the same thing, Jeb, as credit unions. Maybe it's because they were like first out of the gate with these really great ARM programs, but that's where I've been seeing a lot of my clients having a lot of luck getting some really, really great rates for 7 to 10 years on those ARMs. Yeah,
I would just say, I mean, again, I would just say talk to a credit union, talk to a broker, talk to a bank, talk to 3 different people, 3 different types of mortgage professionals, if you will, and see. And let me tell you, I mean, I'm going to defend these guys for a minute. It's not always about the best rate, right?
Sure.
There's fees involved, there's service, there's communication. So make sure you're just taking it all into to account.
That's it. Jeb, I so appreciate you
appreciate
being
it, buddy.
on, taking
Yeah,
time
thanks
away
for
from your
dealing with that.
family. Let's do it again soon sometime.
Absolutely, brother.
All right. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Absolutely.